Hello, my name is Rob Edwards. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today we are back talking Loki. Apologies for radio silence over the last couple of weeks. It has been far too hot in Finland, and I've had a few other writing projects on the go that I've been trying to concentrate on. So I have somewhat neglected my YouTube channel. I will try to correct that in the next couple of weeks. But it does mean that now we're back talking Loki. I have so much to talk, or too much to talk about now, really. And as a result, I'm not even going to pretend there's going to be no spoilers in this. If you haven't seen episodes 1 through 4 of Loki yet, please go watch them before going on with this discussion. Because basically I want to fanboy out about some of the stuff we've seen, wildly speculate about what it all means, and that's not going to make any sense if you haven't watched the show, and it is going to spoil the show for you. So please do go watch it before continuing here. So, spoilers. Well, what a few episodes we've had. Loki, I think, is really angling for my favourite of the Disney Plus shows to date. There is still a kind of a bit of jockeying of position between WandaVision and Loki. Falcon and Winter Soldier, sorry, but it's way in the back here now. But I think if they can stick a landing for Loki, I think it's going to even leave WandaVision in the dust. Do you know, as I talk, just suddenly occurred to me bizarrely, WandaVision is about 2 characters, Wanda and Vision. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is about 2 characters, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Loki is about 2 characters. It's about Loki and it's about Loki. And there is a strange bird in the background. Don't worry about it. And everyone else. But it's all about Loki and Sylvie, basically. We got to meet Lady Loki a little quicker than I expected, actually. She just popped up in episode 2. We got to see her background a little bit in episode 3 and more solidly, more realised in episode 4. And I'm really enjoying her as a character, and her interaction with our Loki is a lot of fun. And I'm interested to see exactly what about her caused the Nexus event. What about her and Loki together caused another Nexus event that was even able to overcome the general nullifying effect of an apocalypse going on in the background in episode 4. How were they able to spot them when we've established that you can do almost anything in an apocalypse event and not register any kind of, what my hair's doing, any kind of, talk about apocalypse events, what was that? Normally there's an apocalypse, you can do whatever you like, and it's not going to have any variant energy. But for some reason, when Loki and Sylvie were sat together talking, is it just because they have affection for each other? Is it just because they believe in each other? I mean, it could be that. How dangerous is the universe when Loki believes in him and herself? But could it be something else? We'll come back to that thought. I'm mostly going to talk about episode 4 here because it's freshest in my mind and so much happened in it. We got to understand that actually what's going on at the TVA is completely different from what we thought it was. Okay. Certainly it's completely different from what was on the surface shown to us. The timekeepers are just robots. A fact which didn't surprise Ravonna, it has to be said. So there's a good chance that she knew that, and she is possibly working directly with the person who was really in charge. We've learnt that all of the agents of the TVA are variants, a fact that they didn't know and have been lied to. I think that has an interesting question about how big the TVA really is. We've seen a lot of elevators with a lot of buttons which don't get pressed. And we've seen one, in episode 1, really expansive view of the TVA out of the window. Yet all of the action within the TVA has been pretty constrained to a few corridors and a few rooms. As a fan of Doctor Who, that's really a positive thing. We do enjoy a bit of a corridor and a bit of a room in Doctor Who. But I do wonder, actually, how big is the TVA? We saw this massive city. Is that real? How much of it does Mobius travel around? He seems to be, pardon the obvious pun, but he seems to be in a bit of a loop himself. He goes from his office to Ravona's office to the courthouse to the corridors to the lockers, but we don't ever see him go out into the and the library, of course. We don't ever see him go out into the wider world. So how much of the TVA actually exists? I saw a YouTube video a couple of weeks ago complaining quite vehemently about how the world building of the TVA was completely broken because of the Infinity Gems that we saw in episode 1. And again, were those part of this snow job that's going on here, that's trying to convince Loki that, this is the power in all the universe? Loki saw that and said, you guys really are the real power. And I think that's really cowed Loki to see that and to see how that is affecting him. And I think if and when he realizes how little of what he saw in the TVA was actually real, that is going to change things. I think those Infinity Gems may not have been real. I think the view we saw out the window may not have been real. I think there's a good chance that a lot of the background characters in the TVA that we see don't have speaking parts because, A, we're not paying them for speaking parts in the real world, but also how many of them are real individual personalities? How many of them are effectively just automata going around filling the roles they need for the background characters within the reality of the show as well? I think it's a possible thing. I think the TVA could be a lot smaller and a lot less powerful than they look like. Of course, once Mobius gets onto that thread, we see him get pruned. I'm sorry, that was really a spoiler. Owen Wilson vanishes out of the show in episode 4. Will we see him again? I think there's a pretty good chance by the end of episode 6 we will see a version of Mobius again, probably on a jet ski. But whether we will see the Mobius that became friends with Loki, I think we won't. But that does kind of lead us into our questions of the moment. What are we actually still needing to find out in the last 2 episodes, and what do I think the answers might be? Well, the questions we've got. What is the nature of Sylvie's Nexus event? How has that effect manifested in her relationship with Loki to create further Nexus events? What happens when a character gets pruned? We've seen that Loki doesn't vanish, but is this a thing which is unique to Loki? What happened when Mobius got pruned? Is that also him getting shunted off to another prison dimension? Who is really running the TVA? Is Ravonna working with them? What about Miss Minutes, who we haven't seen for an episode or 2 now? What is her role in all this, if any? So, what do I think is the answer to some of those questions? Well, I mean, as to who is behind it all, and I guess that really drives the answers to all the rest of them. There are, I guess, 2 obvious choices for who is behind all this. We know that Kang is coming in the MCU. Kang the Conqueror is Marvel's big time-traveling villain. And this could certainly be something that he would pull together. He would certainly have the ability to do so anyway. Would he want to? Well, if he's trying to conquer all of time, then sure, why not? But we haven't really set up Kang, not really, beyond the fact that in the comics he and Ravonna have something of a relationship, I gather. Again, not a corner of the Marvel Universe, comics universe that I know very much about. I think it would be a bit of a stretch at this point. This would be the same problem I had with Mephisto being revealed in WandaVision, that we haven't seen enough to know that, this character is coming. I think it is probably more likely that the person behind all this is a variant Loki. I mean, I know it's the other obvious option, but it keeps the theme about the show's name. It keeps the idea that, we want the villain to be revealed a person that we know all along. The other possibility, of course, is Miss Minutes is the major villain behind the TVA, and that's also possible, but I think that really doesn't answer the question of who's behind it, because then what is Miss Minutes and who is she? But so if I was a betting man, which I am not, I would probably put money on a variant Loki being behind all this and being behind the TVA. Certainly he knows how to push Loki's buttons to keep him under control. It also explains why they are so keen to find and prune variant Lokis, because Loki is just enough of a narcissist to know that the only person that could possibly challenge him is he himself, or herself. So I think that's a real possibility. It might actually even be a variant Sylvie, so a variant of a variant. It might explain a little bit why Sylvie's timeline originally got pruned, because it could be that the original Sylvie is behind the TVA, and when another Sylvie became known within the multiverse, that is when they had to prune her. Possible. Speaking of pruning, does everybody go to a different universe when they get pruned? I think it's possible. I think it could well be that when you get pruned, you get put into a holding cell so that when the TVA needs more agents, they have people to pull on. We've established already that the TVA are all variants. Maybe they are all variants who have been put to one side until they are needed. It would certainly explain why everybody believes that the agents have been created by the TVA, because they could be summoned into existence out of their pocket dimension that they've been held in, fully formed as a person, memory wiped in the process, and everybody who gets to work with them, although again I suspect the TVA agency is a lot smaller, and there are fewer real people in it than are presented. So it is entirely possible, I think, that when a Loki or anyone else gets pruned, they are kept on ice, ready for whatever happens next. As for the sacred timeline and the pruning of branches, it's always suggested that those branches are destroyed by their little pruning grenades. But I have to say, the revelation that we have of Loki surviving does make me wonder if, in fact, all of those branch universes are actually just being separated off of this sacred timeline. And in fact, not so much preventing the multiverse, it's actually creating the multiverse. Each time there's a branch, it's separating it off into a new universe, into a new world. And potentially, that is genuinely setting up the multiverse of madness, not because something goes horribly, horribly wrong into the sacred timeline, it all breaks, but because the TVA has been breaking it all along. It's not been preserving it at all. It has actually been creating chaos, which does rather lead back to the idea of Loki being the one behind it all. There is one final possibility, of course, in that what happens to Loki might be unique. When he gets pruned, he doesn't die. He has an escape mechanism. It would certainly, again, fit in with Loki's MO. As Loki says in this episode, Lokis don't die. They may lose, but they don't die. And maybe all along there has been something about Loki which means that he always has an escape. Does make me wonder if the main Loki in the original Endgame universe also managed to escape to some alternate dimension when he was killed. That might be quite fun. That might be quite fun, actually. I quite like that. But anyway, so that is why we have a universe, an alt universe full of Lokis, because this is the escape hole that all Lokis go to when they die. And as my final thought for this video, can I just say, Richard E. Grant, dressed up as classic Loki, was amazing. It is absolutely completely worth the subscription to Disney Plus right there. Loved it. And I'm so looking forward to seeing more of Loki, Kid Loki, Alligator Loki, and Boastful Loki next time. Anyway, that's it from me this time. I hope you're enjoying Loki as much as I am. I am loving this show. I will be back fairly soon with the third part of my podcast reading of my sci-fi novella, Improbable Cause. Probably going to be the last time I do it for YouTube because it's obvious that people aren't watching it, so I'm not going to worry too much about pursuing that. I will keep recording it as my podcast. So that's next up on my channel. You can expect that sometime next week. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.